Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel Dental. Today we are diving into a fascinating topic that often goes unnoticed but plays a crucial role in our daily lives. The development of the tongue. Have you ever wondered how this small muscular organ in your mouth evolves and adapts from infancy to adulthood? Well, you're in the right place because we are about to explore the incredible journey of the tongue development. But before we get started, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you won't miss any of our engaging content. Now, let's embark on this tongue twisting adventure. The formation of the tongue. So, the formation of the tongue basically begins at the fourth week of intrauterine life, or as we can say, the fourth week of the gestation. The pharyngeal arches are the most important and the primitive element which give rise to the tongue. And not only the tongue, but the pharyngeal apparatus also give rise to the various structures of our face and neck, or as we can say, the head and neck region. The pharyngeal arches basically meet in the midline beneath the primitive mouth. Now, this here are your pharyngeal arches. These are the pharyngeal arches. They are paired structures. They basically meet in the midline. And they overgrow. They proliferate to form certain swellings. Now, these certain swelling give rise to important structures in your head and neck region. So the tongue develops at about fourth week of intrauterine life or the gestation period. The local proliferation of the mesenchyme from these pharyngeal arches basically give rise to a number of swellings which leads to the development of the tongue. Now let us learn a few detailed description about what are these pharyngeal arches. Now, as we can see here, the diagram of the pharyngeal arches here will depict each and every part of the pharyngeal arches basically. So now the first point here to learn here is that the pharyngeal arches basically are present beneath the primitive mouth of that fetus or the embryo that has been growing, that has been developing. These are present beneath the primitive mouth. Now these pharyngeal arches grow in the midline, grow towards the midline. They go towards the midline. These are the pharyngeal arches. These are the pharyngeal arches. Okay. These are the pharyngeal pouches. And these are the pharyngeal clefts, or we can say pharyngeal grooves. Now we have 6 pharyngeal arches total in number. How many? 6. But here we can say only 4. Only 5. So this is the first pharyngeal arch, this is the second pharyngeal arch, this is the third, fourth, and this is the sixth pharyngeal arch. The fifth pharyngeal arch, as to say, is present. Yes, the fifth pharyngeal arch is also present, but it regresses over the time and thus doesn't contribute in the development of the particular structure. So fifth pharyngeal arch is considered disappeared or regressed. Okay, so there is no fifth pharyngeal arch. Only the first, second, third, fourth, and the sixth pharyngeal arch contributes to the development of different structures. Okay, so what are these structures that you can see in the pharyngeal arches? Let us learn what it is. Okay, so we can see nerves that are in the yellows. The red and the blue basically signifies the arteries and the veins. The white ones, okay, yeah, the white part here basically forms the cartilage of that particular arch. The cartilage here is very much important in consideration to the bone that is formed from that particular arch, the main bone that is formed. As in, taking an example that the first pharyngeal arch has an important cartilage named Merkel's cartilage. This Merkel cartilage is responsible for the development of mandible, and that is the reason the first pharyngeal arch is known as the mandibular arch. Moving on to the next element that you can see here is the fourth element, that is the mesenchymal tissue. The mesenchymal tissue basically contributes the mesenchymal structures like the muscles, the mass, basically, but for the structures that are being formed from these pharyngeal arches. Okay, so pharyngeal arches mainly consist of these 4 structures: the nerves, the arteries, the veins, the cartilages, and the mesenchymal tissue. So pharyngeal apparatus is a collective term for several structures, and collectively they form different developmental structures. Arches are paired structures. Okay, arches are paired structures. The pharyngeal pouches are endodermal basically outpocketings, and the clefts are and membranes, pharyngeal membranes, basically contributes to the external structures, and together they put a pharyngeal apparatus which is responsible, as we say, for the development of various important structures in the face and the neck region. Okay, so moving further, in consideration of the tongue, in consideration of the development of the tongue, the important structures that are being depicted in this particular diagram, of pharyngeal apparatus are, so this here that you see is the laryngeal orifice. And laryngeal orifice is not as much important for the, you know, for the development of the tongue, but as it's a structure beneath here for this, the diagram of the development of the tongue, I'm just explaining it. So moving further, these were the important swellings that are important in terms of the development of the tongue. Moving further to the next, the next part of the development of the tongue, the actual process basically. So here, first a swelling, the tuberculum impar, arises in the midline of the first arch, that is also known as the mandibular arch. Now this is the tuberculum impar. This is the tuberculum impar. So firstly, this tuberculum impar arises in the swelling, tuberculum impar arises as a swelling in the first arch, in the midline of the first arch, basically from the proliferation of the first arch. Now, once this tuberculum impar is there from the first arch, then this tuberculum impar is flanked by two lateral swellings from the first arch itself, which is known as lateral lingual swellings. So this tuberculum impar and the lateral lingual swelling together grow and merge and then grow together. Now, once they merge and grow together, they form the important structure that is the anterior two-third of the tongue. So the anterior two-third of the tongue basically is formed from the tuberculum impar and the lateral lingual swellings. So the lateral lingual swelling and the tuberculum impar forms the anterior two-third of the tongue. This tuberculum impar and lateral lingual swelling merges and then grows. As it grows, it forms the anterior two-third of the tongue. That is much more important in this context, that it is formed, the anterior two-third of the tongue is formed from the first pharyngeal arch, from the tuberculum impar and the lateral lingual swellings. Moving further, we have another large swelling that is present around that it basically develops from the second, third and the fourth pharyngeal arch. Now that particular swelling is this. Now this is hypobrachial eminence, as I discussed earlier, and this hypobrachial eminence is then divided into two parts, that is the cranial part and the caudal part. Okay, the cranial part and the caudal part. The cranial part and the caudal part both contribute to the development of the tongue, and a part of the caudal part also gave rise to epiglottis. So basically, the hypobrachial eminence gave rise to the root of the tongue. Now, what is the root of the tongue? This is the root of the tongue. This is the root of the tongue. So this root of the tongue is from the hypobrachial eminence, that basically forms from the second, third and the fourth pharyngeal third of the tongue is formed from the second, third and the fourth arches, and the anterior two-third is formed from the first branchial arch. Okay, that is how the tongue is formed. Now these all swellings now together merge and grow and form the tongue. This all together grow and merge and form the tongue. Now this structure I discussed before, that there is a copula. Now this copula basically is never seen, it is regressed, it is not seen, it disappears. Why? Because this hypobrachial eminence overgrows the copula and it's not present. Now here we can also see this white dot. Now this is foramen cecum. Foramen cecum, it's present, but it is also very much lessened. It is not seen, it is also regressed to such an extent that it is not visible over the tongue. It is the main foramen through which vessels and nerves used to travel during the developmental process of the tongue, but it regresses over once the tongue develops completely. Okay, so that is how the main development of the tongue is. Now, once the tongue develops, now form these arches, first, second, third, and fourth. The nerves, the blood vessels that are associated with these arches are also considered as important for the formation of the blood supply and the nerval supply of the tongue. But we'll discuss it later in another topics, another video about the blood supply and the nerval supply of the tongue. Moving further, so once the tongue is developed, it basically is separated from the floor of the mouth from a ectodermal downgrowth. Now this ectodermal downgrowth basically disappears and forms lingual and form the lingual sulcus. Now the lingual sulcus is the area where the tongue basically is present. Now this lingual sulcus provide the area for the tongue to move and to grow, to basically take its place. Okay. Now, once the tongue is developed, the lingual sulcus is formed, the neural supply and the blood supply also reaches the tongue properly. As I told you, we'll discuss that later on. So, that is our tongue. So, once again, we'll discuss lastly, this is the anterior 2/3. This is the posterior 1/3. Anterior 2/3 is formed from the first pharyngeal arch, posterior 2/3 from the second, third, and fourth arch. This from two swellings, that is tuberculum impar, and two lateral lingual swellings. This is from the hypobrachial eminence, which is divided into cranial and caudal part. Both are involved in the formation of the tongue, and the caudal part in the epiglottis also. Okay, so that's all for the development of the tongue.